any shape or form?
No, we didn't, no.
Because I think that's a very important question to clear up, actually. Because, as we said before, if you dabble in anything to do with the occult, you can be playing with fire. And I'm not saying you did that at all.
No, I wouldn't.
Well, I hope you wouldn't, and I hope most people wouldn't.
I have always been a believer in spirits, though. I have always been a believer, but my other half hasn't. But
you did nothing to conjure up the spirit? You did nothing to bring it there?
Was there, and we were both scared. We were both absolutely petrified, you know, which is understandable for what we went through. But it's like we have a child as well there, and this was actually, we set a trap for him, and this was actually
That's a ghost trap you've got there?
No, it's just a box what makes vibration if it's moved, so we were going to catch him on camera.
Well, just hold that close. I just want to have a look at that. So what is this, a battery-driven?
It just, if it's moved, it makes that noise.
Okay, so if that thing is physically moved, and what, okay, so it's a child's toy or something, is it?
Well, it's one of them things where...
Okay, so you left this in the room where it got cold and where you felt the ghost was?
Yeah, all the coldness was, even when the heating was on full blast, that room was freezing, the back
What about
bedroom.
this little squawk box then? What did that do?
Right, we put it on the top of a surface. It's got a sticky thing at the bottom of it. So when you actually
it can't
put it
move
down,
involuntarily?
No.
No, okay.
No, it actually picked up and threw across the room.
It was thrown across the room?
Me and my other half were at the other end of the room at the time, you know.
Nobody else was in the room?
No.
Well, what did you do when that happened?
I can't say it on live TV, but I panicked.
Really did?
Yeah, I panicked.
You left, you got out of the house?
Oh, yeah, well, we were informed to get out of the house anyway because...
what about your husband? I mean, did he run too, or did he...
Well, yeah, he was more scared than me.
I'd just like to ask George, is it George?
It is, yes.
Yeah, what makes you so obsessed with the occult? I mean, these people...
I'm not obsessed with it at all.
Well, it seems to me like you're quite obsessed with dabbling in the occult.
Well, that's because people are asking questions on a specific topic. I'm not obsessed with the occult at all. But I do recognise that we're living in a generation where more and more people are getting intrigued by this sort of things. As people move away from knowing and loving God, they're getting more and more drawn to strange religions, New Age things, and occultism, etc., etc.
George, well, how would you...
dangerous indeed.
How would you identify that apparition? How would you classify it that's been described?
Well, obviously I want to accept all that Michelle has said.
Does it have a name, that sort of thing?
Well, what I would want to say is that it could be the case that there is an evil presence in the place. But it will not be, you know, somebody who died in the past, the spirit of some child or adult that's wandering around waiting to be released. These are the sort of theories you can hear sometimes. Well, we're going to go into what you probably had is that somebody, if this is a genuine thing rather than an imagined thing, and from what we've heard it sounds very genuine, what you've probably had is you've had somebody in that house or locality dabbling in the occult at some stage in the past, Ouija boards, all that sort of stuff, and the devil has seen a foothold here, as it were, where he can have a locality, where he can do things which can upset innocent folk and the like.
I just want to say about Michelle that me and my friend here run the Stockport Ghost Society, and we were the first two people to go. Michelle, she turned to us at the onset of what was happening, and we've seen her and her boyfriend absolutely petrified to the extent that they've left the house and would not go back, and they allowed us to go into the house. I've actually felt the presence that has been in her house and actually picked up on certain people that were in her house, and we've actually got rid of the baddie, so to speak. And at the moment she's still left with a young child, which is very good, and she loves it, and they get on great.
Because George, you definitely believe in the devil, so does that mean that you believe in the power of the occult?
There is a devil, yes.
Okay, do you believe, I mean, is this a person with horns and a tail?
No, certainly not.
Okay, but the power of the occult is there and it's with us every day.
Well, the devil wants people to not believe and love the Lord Jesus Christ, and he will do whatever he can to influence people in the wrong direction.
I just want to ask Mick and Pandora, what do you do for a living?
Me, I used to be a teacher.
Okay.
I'm a housewife.
Okay, and as for the gentleman in the grey coat, I think the spirit was more scared of you than you were of the spirit.
David, you're sportingly applauding, but tell me, what you heard from Michelle, how would you classify that phenomenon?
Well, I'd just like to say very quickly that there's different categories of unexplained phenomena. And these, in turn, can be divided into subcategories, and I haven't got time to go into it all now, but basically, many psychic phenomena are nothing more than images or reflections of events from the past that can somehow transmit themselves, and they have no intelligence any more than a videotape has intelligence. There's another category of unexplained phenomena, which you can call the poltergeist, whereby you have light bulbs fading, light bulbs exploding, objects moving, doors opening and shutting, objects being held around the room. And I'm quite convinced that 9% of those cases are actually caused by subconscious levels in the human mind itself. They're nothing to do with outside entities.
That's interesting, because you mentioned a poltergeist, and you said this thing was thrown across the road, Michelle. I mean, you're living in the same house now?
Yeah, because it's all been... Well, the evilness is gone.
The evil's gone, and you feel comfortable about being there?
We didn't for a bit. It took a while to actually get used to the idea of living there. And now we actually love the place, you know, it has got a homely feel to it.
I was going to ask Pandora and Mick, what do you think about ghosts and garden? What are your views on those subjects?
Well, I'll say something about that. I think the kind of things that David is describing, and Michelle, are real experiences, and I feel for them, because I felt things like that in my own life, things that happen to you and you just don't understand. What I'm fearful of is the way that George has an explanation that this is the devil. I feel a lot of what I'm about, I feel a lot of what David Farrant is about, is actually challenging all these obvious notions and obvious explanations, and I really feel that George is a part of a show that is becoming less and less relevant.
Well, let's throw a little bit more light into these dark corners. Let us meet the medium who had to exorcise Michelle's ghost and get it out of her house. Welcome to the show, Helen. What did you do, Helen?
When I first went in, I analyse first when I go in. It's like being a doctor, you've got to see what the symptoms are.
How bad a case was this?
Very active, very active.
Worst you've ever seen?
No.
Okay, seen worse.
Yeah.
Obviously, Michelle and her husband, terrified. What did you do about them? What did you do about the ghost?
Calm those first.
Calm them down.
Yeah. Listen to them. You analyse it again. And then well, it started to be active, didn't it, while I was there?
Well, actually, while you were there?
Yeah, yeah. So,
was it reacting against you, perhaps?
Yeah. Everywhere was freezing.
Okay, so what did you do, practically, to get this ghost out of Michelle's life?
Well, it's a ritual one has to do. It's like the priests do it. The priests do it.
Was this bell, book and candle, the old traditional thing?
And
casting the ghosts out?
Yeah, no, asking first. You don't have a battle of wills. You can't have a battle of wills, because if you challenge it, it adds to their energy.
So how long did this process take?
About an hour.
An hour?
Oh, yeah.
As quick as that?
Only a small house.
Okay. So you went round the house casting out the ghost?
Yeah.
And was it effective?
Yes, it was effective.
So she's now got back a happy home?
Yes, she has.
Yeah, we've all seen horror movies like Poltergeist and all those kind of films. I mean, how much physical danger was there to the people living in the house, if any at all? Was it dangerous to them, or are they just there to make a scene?
They're not dangerous.
Not dangerous at all?
If you challenge, they are, but no, if you leave them alone, they're not dangerous. They're frightening, very frightening.
Now, George said that these ghosts are not the spirit of somebody who's lived there before. What were your conclusions about the origins of this ghost?
Well, in most houses, usually there's been... I did find a medium had been living there, didn't I?
Yeah, I did a lot of research on how.
So what were your conclusions, Michelle?
I had a word with it, as you say.
You had a word with it?
Yeah, well, I tuned in. Yeah,
okay, so what was the conversation?
The conversation was, the name was Roscoe, and there was a George. It's sensitivity. You pick it up. It's like a thought referral.
So you did some research and you had a conversation with this...
No, I didn't do any research. That was done afterwards.
I did the research.
Okay, Michelle, what was your guess or belief?
Well, I have always believed in spirits, but it was just the fact that it was happening to me. I thought I'd better go and check this out, you know.
So what identity of the ghost did you come up with?
Sorry?
Who was the ghost? Did you find out who it was?
Yes, it was Harry Birchall and Henry Birchall and also George. Now, I actually went to...
Who was he?
They actually own the house. George was a child. And I actually researched, and there was a Henry and a Harry Birchall. And it's 1910.
Had you just had an interest, my own personal interest, had you recently had any renovation work done there?
Actually, we just started knocking down the chimney breast.
That's exactly that.
Yeah, and that's when it started off.
Yes, because you find that very old buildings often can actually harbour psychic energy in the stone. If that house is interfered with, I'm not talking about a coat of paint or sheet of wood paper, disturbed on a major scale, that psychic energy, which was dormant, can be released, and you can have her. And I've investigated so many cases like that. It's happened in pubs where bottles fly off shelves. Virtually every time you find something like that, there's been some disturbance to the house itself.
George, do you accept that?
Well, I think it was very interesting. I want to go back to the next point I think that was made, that a medium had lived there. Is what you said, was it not?
That's what the connection
research
for.
Yes.
Yeah, I told her that there'd been a medium stay there.
Yes, well, that doesn't surprise me, you see.
No.
Because
but normally it is Ouija board or mediums or something like that.
That's right, which lies behind the occultic presence. So I don't want to actually say that it's all tied up in psychic energy like David.
Well,
I think that's a bit more fanciful.
I think I've kept quiet for long enough on that. I mean, I agree with you that dabbling in the occult, black magic, can be very dangerous, because what you do is...
any form of the occult, David,
not just... We'll come back to that
from
word.
Astrology right the way through to Satanism.
Well, I'm using the word occult in the word you're taking, which means black magic, Satanism.
No, I'm using it all to do with the pit.
Well,
From the stars in the newspaper right the way through to out-and-out witchcraft.
Well, point one is, I don't even accept the existence of the devil, and yet I believe in God. Now, if you can figure that out...
Well, no, I can't figure that out, because if you believe in God, God has revealed...
It strikes me that you've got more points of agreement, actually, than disagreement. You're saying that this house probably was lived in by a man and his son, and they had been experimenting with the occult in the early years of the century. And David is saying, because you started to interfere with it, that released these spirits, and they were the ones that were troubling you. Helen came in and got rid of them. And George actually isn't too far from agreeing with that.
Well, yes, we're agreeing in certain areas, but not in every area.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to ask, is it very lucrative getting rid of ghosts and all that, because I consider a change of career?
Helen, is it a money-making thing?
I don't charge any money at all.
What about Peter Cushing?
David, do you make money out of your interest in the occult? Is it a profession?
Well, I'm the president of the Highgate Vampire Society, and members have to pay, obviously, because, I mean, somebody has to pay for the literature, the hiring of stuff.
So that keeps you?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Can I just ask you something, because we know about... There was the story by Bram Stoker, who is apparently a very innocent Victorian man who lived quietly in Chelsea, wrote about Count Dracula. We all know that the things that vampires don't like are the sign of the cross, sunlight, and garlic. Thank you. Garlic. I mean, are you, David, frightened of any of those things?
Well, I love garlic, put it like that.
Well, next to you, of course, Pandora's got a very big crucifix around her neck.
It's not a crucifix, it's merely a cross.
Okay, so tell me.
It's a Celtic cross, isn't it?
Well,
is this for protection?
I mean, that's the problem. When you say crucifix, then you're talking about real serious religion.
Sign of the cross.
With Christ on it. Now, there's your crucifix. But this is merely a cross, which to me is a very comforting, very attractive, aesthetically pleasing design, and has nothing to do with religion at all for me.
And, David, you don't mind sitting next to it? You don't feel that's a threat, or do you?
Well, it's no threat to myself, no.
But it's a threat to vampires?
Well, if you accept vampires exist, I don't.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Coming up in part 3, a ghostbuster who might be this in the room where it got cold and where you felt the ghost was.
All the coldness was, even when the heating was on full blast, that room was freezing.
What about this little squawk box then? What did that do?
Right, we put it on the top of a surface. It's got a sticky thing at the bottom of it, which is understandable for what we went through. But it's like we have a child as well there, and this was actually, we set a trap for him, And this was actually...
That's a ghost trap you've got there?
No, it's just a box what makes vibration if it's moved. So if we're going to catch them on camera...
Well, just hold that close. I just want to have a look at that. So what is this, a battery-driven...
It just, if it's moved, it makes that noise.
Okay. So if that thing is physically moved... And what... Okay. So it's a child's toy or something, is it?
Well, it's one of them things where...
Okay, so you left...
shape or form?
No, we didn't, no.
Because I think that's a very important question to clear up, actually. Because, as we said before, if you dabble in anything to do with the occult, you can be playing with fire. And I'm not saying you did that at all.
No, I wouldn't.
Well, I hope you wouldn't, and I hope most people wouldn't.
I have always been a believer in spirits, though. I have always been a believer, but my other half hasn't. But
you did nothing to conjure up the spirit? You did nothing to bring it there?
And we were both scared. We were both absolutely petrified, you know.